We often hear about this thing called Tesla speed, but it's usually just a vague marketing term. When you look at Gigafactory Shanghai, though, it becomes terrifyingly real. We're talking about a facility that went from getting permits to final electrical work in just 168 working days. A massive $2 billion factory delivering its first cars to customers in less than a year.
It's a speed that almost defies belief, David. And that speed wasn't just a result of great engineering or project management. It was fundamentally linked to something much bigger, a unique geopolitical deal that made Tesla the first ever wholly foreign-owned enterprise, or WFOE, in China's auto sector. This special status is the secret ingredient that made the impossible benchmark of Giga Shanghai possible.
Right, the WFOE status. So this wasn't just some regulatory tweak. It allowed Tesla to completely bypass the standard rule that forced foreign car makers into a 50-over-50 joint venture with a local Chinese partner. What did China get out of giving Tesla this unprecedented deal? What was the long-term play for them?
Well, it was a very calculated strategic move. For decades, China's auto industry operated with these mandatory joint ventures, which helped local companies learn from foreign giants. But by 2018, China wanted to accelerate its push into new energy vehicles. They needed a catalyst, a major player to come in and electrify the supply chain and prove the market's potential. Tesla was the perfect candidate. By granting the WFOE status, China attracted a massive $2 billion investment and, more importantly, cutting-edge EV technology. It served as a vital proof of concept. Right after Tesla's success, Toyota signed a deal for a wholly owned Lexus EV plant. China essentially used Tesla to signal to the world that it was open for next-generation business on new terms.
I see. So it was a strategic lure, but the source material suggests this was a conditional privilege. It sounds like a double-edged sword for Tesla. Does this mean Beijing could just pull the plug or use this special status as a political bargaining chip if things get tense between the US and China?
Absolutely. That's the core geopolitical risk. The WFOE status wasn't a permanent right. It was granted based on Tesla meeting specific targets for capital investment and annual tax revenue. It's a privilege that can be revoked. So, while Tesla enjoys full operational control and keeps 100% of the profits a huge advantage over competitors, it's also deeply dependent on the goodwill of the Chinese government. As trade tensions rise, and as China begins to more aggressively promote its own domestic EV champions like BYD, that special status becomes a potent tool of political influence. Tesla is walking a strategic tightrope.
And speaking of that speed, what does it tell us about industrial projects elsewhere? Tesla tried to use Shanghai as a template for Giga Berlin and Giga Texas, but they've struggled to match that Chinese execution rate. Why can't they just copy and paste this model in Germany or the US?
Because the template isn't just about Tesla's internal processes, it's about the entire ecosystem. The 168-day record was possible because the WFOE status allowed the government to fast-track everything: permits, local coordination, you name it. In the West, you run into a different reality. Stricter labor laws, slower and more complex permitting timelines, even logistical hurdles like getting power lines approved and built. Giga Texas and Giga Berlin have proven that you can't just replicate the Tesla speed without the unique policy facilitation and industrial environment that existed in Shanghai.
So it's this unique foundation of speed and strategic concessions that set the stage, but once built, the factory itself became this crucible for hyper-efficiency. I'm looking at numbers that are hard to grasp. A complete vehicle rolling off the line in under 40 seconds. A 95% automation rate.
That sub-40-second cycle time is the headline, but the innovation that enables it is the real story. The most significant is a technology called Giga casting. To put it simply, think about building a complex Lego model. The old way was to assemble hundreds of tiny individual bricks. Giga casting is like having a machine that can instantly mold that entire complex section of the model as one single solid piece.
Okay, that's a great analogy. So you're skipping all the little steps of gluing and welding hundreds of pieces together.
Exactly. For the Model Y's rear underbody, Giga casting replaced what used to be 171 separate stamped metal parts with just one or two massive cast components. That single change eliminated something like 1,600 welds. The savings in time, labor, cost, and complexity are astronomical. This hyper-efficiency, combined with localizing the supply chain in China, is what gives Tesla better gross margins on Shanghai-made cars than even on those from its original Fremont factory. It's the engine behind their aggressive price cuts in China, which puts immense pressure on every other automaker.
But here's the part that feels like a paradox. The text notes that China has now become the global epicenter for gigacasting. Did Tesla just hand over its most powerful manufacturing weapon to its future competitors on a silver platter?
That's the billion-dollar question. and it points to the fast-track innovation culture in China. Tesla brought the technology to gain a competitive edge. But local Chinese OEMs, supported by a rich supply chain and a mindset that prioritizes rapid iteration over long-term risk assessment, adopted it with lightning speed. The report says over 80% of the world's gigacasting machines are now installed or planned in China. So yes, in a way, Tesla served as the catalyst for its own competition to close the manufacturing gap. Tesla's advantage is being eroded by the very ecosystem that enabled its initial success.
Wow. So it's a constant race. Now, beyond the speed and cost, Giga Shanghai has this other critical job, churning out massive volume while also fixing Tesla's infamous build quality issues. Elon Musk himself called the cars from there one of the best quality cars in the world.
And he wasn't just posturing. That statement is backed up by reports from some of the most quality-sensitive markets. For years, Tesla's brand was hurt by stories of poor fit and finish, from its Fremont factory, uneven panel gaps, paint issues. When the Shanghai-made cars started being exported to places like Australia and Europe, consumers immediately noticed a difference. They reported seeing so much more attention to detail. We're talking about measurable improvements, like panel gaps consistently hitting the 4mm spec, whereas Fremont cars were often wider. Tesla essentially used the manufacturing discipline of Giga Shanghai to outsource its own quality control stabilization and repair its global brand reputation.
That's a fascinating strategy. But the report also points out an interesting nuance. While Giga Shanghai dramatically improved Tesla's internal standards, some Chinese market surveys, like from JD, Power show local brands like NIO still ranking higher on initial quality. So is the highest quality claim more of a relative improvement than an absolute industry-leading position?
That's the perfect way to frame it. Giga Shanghai solved Tesla's times inconsistency times problem. The 95% automation rate ensures that the cars are built to the same standard every single time, which is a massive achievement. They fixed the panel gaps and the paint drips that plagued the brand. However, initial quality in those surveys can also include things like interior material feel, software intuitiveness, and other design elements where domestic Chinese brands who are hyper-focused on their home market might have an edge. So Giga Shanghai's quality is world-class relative to Tesla's own history and critical for its brand repair. But the competition within China itself is on another level.
It really underscores how indispensable that factory is. It's providing over half of Tesla's global volume and simultaneously serving as its quality control anchor for exports. This brings us to its role as an export engine, which is now coming under serious geopolitical pressure.
It is. Giga Shanghai ships a massive portion of its output, over 160,000 units annually, to Europe, Australia, Korea, and beyond. It's the logistical backbone of their global strategy. But this reliance is now a major vulnerability. The European Union is imposing an additional 7.8% tariff on EVs from China, on top of the standard 10% duty.
So that's a cumulative 17.8% tariff. Is that enough to completely wipe out the cost advantages that Giga Shanghai worked so hard to build? Does it make exporting to Europe a losing game for Tesla?
It makes it financially marginal, at best. A nearly 18% tariff can absolutely neutralize the manufacturing cost advantage. This isn't a minor speed bump. It's a fundamental threat to the profitability of that entire export route. It's forcing Tesla into a corner. They now have to divert that massive production volume away from the high-value European market and pivot towards regions with lower tariffs, like the Asia-Pacific and the Middle East.
And this must be why we hear so much about the need to accelerate the ramp-up of Giga Berlin. But as we just discussed, you can't just copy-paste Tesla speed. Is Giga Berlin realistically capable of scaling up fast enough to fill that huge void for the European market?
That's the strategic bottleneck. They have to accelerate Giga Berlin to serve Europe locally and avoid the tariffs, but they'll never match the speed of the Shanghai ramp-up. This situation creates a potential gap in their European supply, which is a significant risk for their market share there. It shows how a single factory's success, when so heavily relied upon, can create ripple effects across the entire global operation when faced with geopolitical headwinds.
And these headwinds aren't the only risks. As we dig deeper, we find this darker side to the story of hyper-efficiency. The report mentions Giga sweatshop allegations.
Yes, and this gets to the heart of the paradox. To achieve a sub-4.0-second production cycle, you need an operational intensity that frankly clashes with Western labor expectations. Musk has praised the extreme work culture of the Chinese workforce, but media reports have alleged high-intensity labor, extreme pressure, and long hours. Tesla has vehemently denied these claims and is even suing for defamation. But regardless of the specifics, the situation creates significant ESG friction that's environmental, social, and governance. For a company trying to sell a vision of a sustainable future, this kind of reputational risk is toxic. It can alienate ethically conscious investors and customers.
So it's a fundamental dilemma. The very thing that gives them their cost leadership, that relentless operational drive, is also their biggest ethical and reputational liability.
Precisely. And that leads to the final, most mind bending paradox of all. China facilitated Tesla's entry, allowed it to bring in technology like gigacasting, and helped it build a hyper efficient supply chain. But now, having learned from the master, China is strategically fostering its own domestic champions like BYD with subsidies and zero tariff access. These local competitors have adopted Tesla's innovations and are now taking market share. The recent decline in Giga Shanghai shipments reflects this rising pressure. Tesla, in a sense, was invited to build the perfect weapon, only to find that the blueprints were being copied by everyone else in the room.
Looking at this whole story, from the WFOE deal to the gigacasting revolution and now the competitive pressure, what's the key lesson for other Western automakers? Are their old joint venture models just completely obsolete now?
Giga Shanghai is an existential threat to them. It proves that the old, slow-moving JV models and legacy manufacturing structures simply cannot compete on cost or speed. To stay relevant, they have to adopt the same principles: radical manufacturing innovation, like gigacasting, higher operational density, and seeking more autonomous control in major markets. The game has fundamentally changed, and Giga Shanghai wrote the new rulebook.
So, when we pull it all together, the story of Giga Shanghai is really this incredible paradox. It's Tesla's single most valuable asset, yet it's also their single biggest source of risk.
Exactly. It's a case study in unprecedented advantage tied to inherent vulnerability. The WFOE status gave them speed and control, but also dependence. The manufacturing innovations gave them cost leadership, but also armed their competitors.
And it established this global manufacturing template, but with key elements like that government-facilitated speed that are almost impossible to replicate elsewhere. It's a unique lightning in a bottle situation.
That's right. And now the challenge for Tesla is to manage that dependency. The rising trade tariffs are forcing them to diversify, to ramp up Giga Berlin for Europe, and pivot Giga Shanghai's focus to other high-growth regions. They have to balance the benefits of localization in China with a broader, more resilient global footprint.
Giga Shanghai stands as a monument to human ingenuity and industrial ambition, a facility that has rewritten the rules of automotive manufacturing. Yet, its story transcends mere production metrics, revealing a profound narrative about the intricate dance between innovation, geopolitical strategy, and ethical responsibility in a rapidly globalizing world. It forces us to ponder, in the relentless pursuit of efficiency and market dominance, what hidden costs are incurred, and how sustainable is a model built on unique concessions and intense operational demands. The future of Giga Shanghai, and by extension Tesla's global strategy, will be a critical barometer for how multinational corporations navigate a world increasingly defined by both unprecedented opportunity and complex, interwoven risks.